So can you tell if they've logged in yet?
They have not.
Okay. Let's see what that's starting.
Kind of sweet one.
This are being recorded.
I think outside, right?
Okay. Thank you to everyone who agreed to be here today. I say that on behalf of myself and Stacy Toller. I think you all know this already, but we're launching a website redesign. We only launched 2 years ago, but rule of thumb is to do it every 3, so that means we have to start again every 2. But we're frankly very excited about it because we like our new website, and those of you who may have seen the old one know what a huge improvement that this one has been. However, there are things we know we can do better, and so we had the opportunity to tweak some of those. So it's very important to have input from faculty. I have to say, I have to let you know that you are being recorded and ask if anyone objects to having their comments recorded. Thank you. All right, so we got that little housekeeping item out of the way. And for the record, I would need to start with Melissa and ask each person to say your name. We're going to do a transcription. So anyway.
Just my name?
Yeah.
I'm Melissa H.
Erin Tarver. Excuse me.
Nick Fassett.
Sarah Fankhauser.
Jack Hardy.
Sorry, I'm Stacy Toller.
Jessica Ham.
Annette Newman. Molly McGehee.
Tasha Duggan Bennett.
Scott Foster.
And Kathy Wooten. Again, we're looking for your input as faculty members, as those who've used our website. And what we're trying to gain is insight into how we can help prospective faculty members who will be visiting our website. And also our primary target, of course, are prospective students. What we're trying to see is how we convey what the Oxford Academic Program is. And we'll also ask a few questions about how some of the usability aspects of our current website and what your recommendations might be as we work toward this new redesign. And I realize we don't have all day. You may have a lot of, you may have a lot to tell us about that. I'll also say I made this meeting 1:15, but if you can stay longer, that's fine. I just knew that the 12 to 1 slot was when you would absolutely have free time. If you can stay, we welcome that. So, and Stacy and I are going to sort of tag team you on the questions because we'll be taking notes as we go. Let me start with the first one and sort of let us know, how did you find out about Oxford and end up working here? Had you ever heard of it, and how did you find out about it?
I saw a job ad on Hire Ed and had never heard about it before then.
Okay. Anybody find this a way other than ads? You know, hire employment ads?
Through my partner, who was being recruited for the organic farming position. But I already knew about it because I went to Emory for graduate school.
So I also went to Emory for graduate school and came here straight from there. And I sort of only vaguely knew about Oxford while I was in graduate school at Emory. I feel like it's maybe more visible now, but we had an Oxford continuee in my graduate research lab. And I mentioned that I was applying for this job, and someone was like, "Oh, Clint went to Oxford." And I was like, "What's Oxford?" So maybe the visibility now is higher.
I had never heard of Emory as a university until I moved to Atlanta. And I came to Oxford, or I found out about Oxford also through my partner.
I was at Emory for my postdoc, and I knew about Oxford because I grew up in Georgia. But I found out about my job posting through an ad that my research advisor sent, and that was the first time she had ever heard of Oxford. And so there was kind of like this disconnect on the Atlanta campus as to what Oxford was.
When I saw, so I also found out about it through a job ad. I remember being really confused by the job ad, and I went and looked at the website because I was confused because the text of the ad only mentioned Oxford, it didn't mention Emory. But then the contact name was Adrienne Ivy, and she had an Emory email address, and so I was like, I was confused, and so went searching for information on the website about like what this was. And at the time, I was still very confused about what it was because of the confusing nature of the website on that subject at the time.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that
No, I was going to say that my experience was very similar. I remained confused about Oxford until I campus interviewed. But I remember trying to.
And that was like 2 years, last year.
Last year, yeah.
Okay, so that was with Naomi.
Yeah.
Okay.
That kind of leads in nicely to the next question, which is how did the website play into your research? Like once you got the advertisement and, became interested, because obviously this is also for, other audiences other than just prospective students, prospective faculty as well. So how did it play in then? And then how might it be, I guess, what other features might be more helpful moving forward?
I remember finding it very difficult to learn about the members of the department that I was hoping to get into. And I wanted to research every single member of the department, their research, their outreach, and so I found that difficult. And when I got to the interview, the bits of information I did have were way outdated. They're like, yeah, we don't do this anymore. So it made it very challenging.
So we all have faculty pages, but I don't think they're linked in any way to departments. So that, and I know we don't really have departments, but even if they were linked to our divisions, I think that might be helpful organizationally.
I found that some of the information that's public for Emory College faculty, such as their handbook or guidelines for tenure and promotion, we keep behind the inside or in the Inside Oxford site. And I don't know what the rules are, but the provost has a website and Emory College has a website that's really clear about certain things. But if you're if you're a candidate looking to understand Oxford better, a faculty handbook or something like that's often something you go look for. But if we keep it behind the wall, that's not accessible. Then again, that document contains a lot of policies. I don't know if we want to have those public, but if some of that could be taken out and put in an external facing wall it could be helpful, because I do think as a prospective faculty member in the past, I've looked at different handbooks to figure out what are the policies and what are the expectations for tenure and promotion, and that could be important.
And I think things like parental leave also are important. And I wasn't able to find anything about that on the website. On the outside
resources type.
The Molly's comment about being behind the wall. When I first taught here, I also was looking for syllabi or what. There were no learning objectives for the course I was teaching. And eventually, I had an in, and the person who I had an in with got me logged in, and I could see all those syllabi and see what previous people had done. And that was really useful because the people in the summer weren't responding to emails when I was so I'm going to be teaching this class. And I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. But I didn't have my Emory stuff set up, so I couldn't go behind the wall of all those library resources where we put all our electronic syllabi, which is, now I use behind the wall a lot, but not having access was sort of
I had that exact same problem. I also was not clear when I applied how the college system worked. And coming from an institution that had colleges, I had assumed incorrectly that it was exactly the same, where the colleges were all in the same physical place, and you applied to a college and the university. And so I was quite surprised when I drove this far out from the airport. Where are you taking me? And we just, even in the Scholars Weekend, a number of the parents were really surprised how far out Oxford was. So that's definitely doesn't seem to be clear.
I feel like I was less confused about what Oxford was, but I don't feel like I got that information from our website. I just did like basic Googling. And I found, even now when I'm trying to find something on our website, I Google it and find the links that way, because anytime I put something in the search thing, nothing ever works. So,
or it brings you to the Emory University, like the Emory College site.
And so, because I used that, I've gone to the website and had used the search bar that's up there to try to find answers to questions, things you've mentioned, and couldn't find anything. And then when I Googled it, it was much easier to find that information.
I think anytime I am applying to a position, if I'm going to the website of the place, there's two things I'm looking for. The first one is the department, and so that I can see, like as Sarah was saying, the people who also work in that area. And usually when I do that, I'm going to academics, and then I'm going to see like a list of departments, and I'll go to philosophy. But that is not here. And I understand organizationally in terms of the structure of the institution why it's not here, but I feel like there needs to be some other way for people to figure out how to navigate to the information that they're looking for. Because that is obviously not like transparent to somebody who's not intimately familiar with the structure of the institution. Also, I think it's probably better now, but sometimes I'll be going to like about to get like a clear sense of like, what are the values of this institution? Is there a mission statement there? Especially if I'm writing a cover letter or something. And if I can't find those things from those specific links, then I'm using the search function, which is just an utter nightmare with, with our search function.
So there are pages somewhere for the divisions, right? But I can't remember, do they have any useful information on them? Because it seems like that could be where the faculty within those divisions could be housed.
It actually is.
But it's not.
I guess I haven't looked at it in a while.
When I tried looking at it recently, when I click on humanities, then it's like, you can take courses like anthropology. And I'm like, can we? It's, is that how you get to like people's, like your page?
It can be, what I'd like to, I guess what we should do so we can get your, we can show you this, but should we just let you say that, and then I don't want to get defensive about anything or say, actually you can do this, but we can do that. But I want to get to your other thoughts. So, but this is useful. I think what you're talking about is on there, but what we're hearing, what we need here, which is, it's not obvious that it's on there.
Right.
So so thank you for that. And then after we finish, I'll be glad to show you all how you do find that should you have candidates that can't find it. So that's very useful.
So what's under academics?
I'm sorry?
What's under?
I can't drive. You want to drive their stuff?
They're the divisions on the right.
Okay.
It just doesn't.
So then what's on that division page?
Scroll. Keep going. These are, keep going.
Okay.
Okay.
And then view this. There you are, Jack.
Wait, so is that your page or is that your directory? Or is that just two different things? The bio page, I mean.
I think those are the same.
Okay, good.
But it is, and our thought was that for perspectives, it isn't that they don't want to know about their faculty, but we were showing them the courses they could take.
Can we just go back down real quick? Is it alphabetized by name? Is it possible to get it by discipline?
Well, it's got your title.
Right, but if I'm
So
a,
you can see the list.
if I'm a
of
prospective
philosophy.
person, I don't know people's names, I
That's-
just wanna know about
That's a
the.
useful suggestion.
Yeah,
So you're
that
not
would
like
just your
control F
F
for philosophy.
or, yeah.
Very useful suggestion, yes.
The thing I was talking about with the, you can take classes in anthropology is about that.
Yeah, well, you see who our main audience is, but not to diss our prospective faculty, but that, yeah, that's, yeah.
I think a lot of them, that's why, and I've gotten other sites under academics, or there's other links that say for prospective students, for faculty, for parents.
Right.
And then that way, it
That's,
can get separated out a little bit more, where then you're not trying to say, okay, let me design this website that's good for prospective students and prospective faculty.
that, okay, all right, good enough.
So like, for
maybe-
example, the Emory College department pages, there's like a main department landing page, and then there's like different things. So faculty, courses,
Yeah.
like programs of study. I mean, so
I see what you're saying, yeah.
that's the sort of organization that I feel like is standard or like more typical for a department or divisional webpage. And so that is, it's harder to figure out like what we're looking for here.
It's like, I think this looks a lot better, but because it differs not only from Emory, but from like other universities, like it's
The
typical
majority
for
of
other
others.
institutions to have that, like, these are the courses offered, this is the thing, and it's all on like at Emory, it's all on the left for all the departments, and it's very like standardized, which doesn't look as pretty as this, but it's the thing.
Okay.
I was just gonna say under academics, when you go and you see the divisions rather than having divisions, which makes sense to us, just having that say departments, even if we don't technically have departments, we really kind of do. And or just have disciplines, and then they could go to those specific pages, just a suggestion. But Kathy, does the research show now that students or this age group will scroll below
They
the
only
fold?
scroll.
They will scroll.
And they
Because it
think-
used to be
And
that
they don't
wouldn't
use
scroll,
that, they
right?
use this.
I read something the other day.
So
that
they will go
they
to the
scroll
bottom.
the length of the Statue of Liberty like in a day or something like that. It's like that's all they want to do is scroll. They don't want to
So
click
having
on
all
things.
that go down is
Mm.
used to be
The
we'd have
opposite.
above the
Mhm.
fold.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's
Above the
interesting.
fold is old.
Which is why you know
They just know what that
pages are much
means.
longer and more sprawling. You feel like this is never going to end, but especially with the devices that they're using, the majority of them are not looking at this on their desktop.
Thanks.
So, how would you describe the Oxford academic program to a non-Oxford, to your non-Oxford faculty peers? We're jumping here a little bit to sort of away from usability and into the concepts and content, because we're looking for your ideas on content as well as usability. So now this is more of a content question.
It's like student focused. There's a really strong emphasis on the students, on leadership, on skills that they need to learn to start to become scholars in a particular discipline. The emphasis on start.
Yeah, I often frame it like if I'm giving my like 30-second description of what it is. So I'd say it's a first and second year program, you know, that most of them go on to the Atlanta campus. Because like we've said before, people don't know that what Oxford is, even just that. So, and then I emphasize how small classes, like these students who are just like the best students, enthusiastic. I definitely talk about how the students are, because I think it attracts a certain type of student. And so I emphasize that that's what it's like. So it's, as somebody who's taught at lots of different places, I say it's like having the best student, but all of them are the best student. And so it makes teaching really sort of fun.
The most common question I get when I try to explain it that way, first, second year, they transfer it. Why would anyone want to start at Oxford? Like, that's the most typical question I get when I try to explain where it's located, and then you bring in the, smaller campus, small class sizes, greater opportunity to get involved in leadership and scholarship. Some people, it's a not urban environment.
Yeah, so they get like, I'm from the West Coast where we don't really have these like slacks. And so people out here know what that is. And so I say, oh, they get that like small liberal art experience, and then they can go out to Atlanta, so they get both sort of like experiences. Oh yeah, the best of both worlds.
Just cut and paste.
Who's our audience in this exercise?
You're at a conference and somebody says, so what is Oxford College? A non-Oxford faculty.
So I usually start with Emory. And I say, so Emory was founded as a small college. Actually, when we moved to Atlanta, we maintained the small college. And so now we have a unique situation in which students can spend the first 2 years of their Emory undergraduate degree in a small liberal arts college environment. And so we provide a strong foundation of liberal arts education for the first 2 years of their degree, should they choose to do that. And then they get to also have the experience of being on a research campus. Yeah.
But to add to all the things that have been said, I almost always bring up scale. It's a very small college, it's very intimate, which means, in my field, it brings all kinds of other connotations of the kinds of things you can do. And talking about it being kind of not secluded, but maybe secluded, but residential.
I often refer to the 2 doors in, 3 doors out analogy. That really helps with non-American faculty. And that makes a lot more sense to my British colleagues. They understand it a lot more clearly.
Any other?
If I'm talking to another faculty member, they might be curious about my teaching load. So I might talk about teaching load, research expectations, especially if they are familiar with Emory. And so it's like, oh, well, no, I'm not expected to get like $1 million grants and things like that. The scholarship is, even people who their primary area of research isn't education. So because mine is, I'll say, oh, I work with all these people who are really interested in improving their teaching. So I'll focus on that too. And I'll also say how, oh, I'll have lunch with a chemist and a physicist and a philosopher. And I actually talk to these people, because even at a place like Emory College, I didn't even talk to the other linguists. So to say, oh, I had a conversation with an art historian, that's like, what? Like, how does that even happen? So that's something I sell to them, like, because it's like intellectually stimulating to have that heterogeneity, but still like intimacy.
It's a community of teacher scholars,
Mm-hmm.
teaching eminence. Eminence, effervescence.
Any other, sort of a segue to that then. So what about teaching at Oxford appealed, not necessarily now, and that's fine too, but so after doing your homework, you came here, you interviewed, and you decided to come here. What about the teaching here appealed to you? What aspects of Oxford? And maybe it's the same as what you just said, but is there why did it appeal to you to take this job?
So for me, it resonated a lot with my own undergraduate experience. So I went to Davidson College, and when I came here for my interview, which even though I had been at Emory, it was my first time visiting Oxford's campus. And I was like, there's so much brick. It's like I'm home. So that was my first impression, was like the the physical campus, and then the teaching and just the collegiality among faculty as well as between faculty and students was really a feature that I was looking for. And small classes and people who really care about teaching and spend time talking about teaching and working to improve their teaching were really important to me.
I always said to any students and their families that I came for the faculty and stayed for the students. And that I have two examples. The first one was at the lunch at my interview. I still very clearly remember Lloyd asking me if I like Star Wars or Star Trek. And it's like super clear. Clark asking me to describe an art form that he'd never heard of before. And Jill coming up and apologizing for not making it to the lunch. And like, it's clear as day, those things. And then the rest of the conversation was just about how people were improving their teaching. They were going on these workshops and doing these things. And I thought, these people are amazing. Like, I want to be as cool as those people. And then the student aspect was two things. In the class that I taught, the students were so excited and so enthusiastic and so passionate, and had obviously done their homework. Now, maybe because they got extra credit, but it was still really exciting. But the really exciting thing was when we were walking across campus after that, and I couldn't believe how many students came up to talk to Camille about class, about studio, about things that were happening outside of class. And I thought, wow, these students are engaged and they have no fear of coming up and talking to faculty. And so that was really exciting. Sorry, Jessica.
No, I don't know if I have anything. You said much more elegantly, I think, what the same things I was thinking. The collegiality of the place was very apparent in the campus interview. And I was coming off of a postdoc in which people wouldn't even make eye contact with one another. So it was very refreshing to sort of feel the warmth of the place. As well as I got a very strong sense in that experience that you would be allowed to talk about enjoying the classroom, enjoying that process of teaching. Whereas in my graduate training, I noticed that professors were not allowed to talk about teaching. Like, they were actively like not admitting that they liked doing it sometimes because it wasn't rewarded. So it was just, I sensed that you could enjoy doing that here and also have an immense amount of support within that.
I liked the physical space as well. Being, the new science building was very appealing, considering most geologists are in the basement of a building that's full of asbestos, and it's just insanely awful. So the physical space of the classrooms and the way it was laid out was very nice. I also got in addition to everything you guys said, but the very clear that there was support to try new things, right? Like, you want to develop a class that goes on a field trip, go for it, right? You want to try this crazy new teaching idea, go for it. They were very open to trying lots of new things, and there was a lot of support to make that happen. It wasn't like, you want to do that, fine, figure out how to do it and go off on your own. It's like, we've got this person who can help with this, and this can help with this, and this can help with this. And it came from a campus that, when I left, their motto was, you have to do less with less, because there was physically no money or support to do anything. And so I still feel like I'm underutilizing the support that we have here because I'm not used to asking for it. But being able to have the flexibility to design classes the way I want them to be, and design new classes, and the ease at which all those things are made easy and supported, and being able to go on field trips every week is, yeah, sure, you want to do that, fine, we've got Dan's right here, go, as opposed to what my past experiences were. And that was all very appealing, especially for someone that's a field person, and it's easy to get outside, and they want you to get outside, and here's money to go outside.
I had a very similar experience. I came here from an institution where I spent 6 years, and the conversations in the hallway were always about, are we going to get raises? What's going on with the president and his ineffective leadership and the horror of that. And our time was spent on those things when we could have really been having some great conversations about teaching. And it was a teaching institution as well, but there is something to be said about the resources, not just at Oxford, but of Emory University, of having that from healthcare to the library to what have you. So yeah, it's really important because it allows you to do the things you really love and talk about the things you love and not dwell on the negatives all the time.
I would echo that. I think everyone been on a lot of search committees recently, and like every candidate who's come here, one of the things I say to them, all of them, is that no one has ever told me there's not money for that, which is an enormous, enormous privilege and luxury and all of this stuff. So it's extraordinary to be able to be so creative and for the institution to have resources for this. And then I usually emphasize, and this is why being part of Emory is so important, because all of us, I think, came here because we wanted to teach a liberal arts college, but nationwide liberal arts colleges are struggling.
Right.
And so being attached to Emory means you're at a liberal arts college, but you're not struggling, and you'll never have the same kinds of struggles at another, or that you would at another institution like this, or of this scale, I should say.
I also I'll say I'll take that and then I'll say, and then that attracts these students who otherwise would be like business, but they have these experiences at Oxford, these liberal arts experiences that they wouldn't get otherwise. That it gives them, these students who are like pre-med or whatever are taking a religion class and really into it. And they might not change their major, but yet now they're informed in a way that they never would have been otherwise. And yet they're attracted to us because we're connected to the business school or to the, and so it's really a neat like student body too, because it's not only sort of people who are already like liberal arts college, like so you get these people who can grow in neat ways. Yeah.
Kind of leads nicely into the next question, which is like to change it up just a little bit. How would you talk to a prospective student about the academic program, and how obviously that might be different than how you talk to faculty? And I guess kind of to tie on to that and combine two questions, like what about our academic program do you think is most important for prospective students to understand?
For me, when I'm talking to prospective students, I emphasize the small classroom size, but like why is that important? Because they're not just sitting there receiving information, but we're very flexible in the ways that we can learn. And I usually don't even try to use the word teach, but it's like we're a learning community, and how that is accomplished in the classroom. You're not just learning the content, but as a way of thinking, a way of doing. And on top of that, the connections that students and faculty have are just so close. And I went to Georgia Tech, and I had great connections with my professors, but not at the same level that I have them today with my students, because I only have maybe 90 students a year, and so I'm able to make really close connections with them.
I sat on an admissions panel at the Atlanta campus last year that had representatives from all of the undergraduate colleges, and to some extent the students, but especially the parents, had lots of questions about internship opportunities. So that's something I wouldn't have necessarily thought of, but I feel like that's like a very important issue for parents specifically. Like, how does this education provide or like lead to a job? Which I think we have different ways of answering that. But if the question the parents are asking is specifically about internships, I think more broadly our experiential learning program can be a really powerful answer to that. So I think that's something that should be emphasized when we're communicating with prospective students.
I agree with that. I'd say more broadly, when I speak with students, I want to also distinguish us from Emory College, because that's also a question that comes up. And to that end, I usually focus on the curriculum, especially with recent changes, because I want to make sure that's clear to students too, that if you come here, you are going to be required to do this discovery seminar, that this is a good thing and this is what this thing does. And that goes back to the relationship with advisors and the small class size. and then the experiential learning component and how we've worked as a faculty to think through those things and offer something that is particular to Oxford at this point. Now that set up and on the GER committee at Emory, and it seems like they may just be taking all of our ideas. Didn't say that on the record. Now they're talking about an experiential learning requirement.
Well, the
and,
INQ thing became the nature of evidence, right?
Well, and now they're actually calling it ways of inquiry. I'm thinking about making that. Anyway, so we'll see how they get, how far they get with that. But, distinguishing our curriculum and how that ties back to these points about size and
I'll even
intimacy.
connect to so how Sarah was saying, I have this many students. I know all of their names. Like 2 years later, I can still say, oh, hi, that person. But also because it's so much smaller at the first and second years compared to Emory College, for example, where I taught before I taught here, I would have a class of 70, whereas here I have it as 25. So just in terms of like the opportunities for internships or research opportunities, the pool is already so much smaller that they have so many more opportunities these first and second years than their equivalent at the Emory College campus. A first year student at Emory College is not going to be in somebody's lab. They're just getting to know the professors then. But here it's like, oh yeah, you want to do this thing? Oh yeah, then we'll do this thing. We'll do this thing. Whereas they're still sort of in stadium seats at Emory. They're not interacting the same way. And so they do get actual physical conferences, and there's tons of funding too. So I have one linguistics student here who's Ken Anderson's office has funded her all kinds of money. She's probably received more money from Oxford than the entire linguistics department at Emory College to do research. So it's in terms of students doing research, it's a lot more opportunities here.
I feel like that could be emphasized more
I
because
do too.
students tend to think that they're lacking opportunities or that on a per student basis there are fewer. The way that they think about it is very warped, and if we could frame it as Jack was saying, there's a smaller pool, your denominator is smaller.
So I do worry about that a little bit because I know when the tour groups come on the fourth floor of the science building right outside my office, that's where they emphasize research. And I worry that prospective students are getting the message that there are research opportunities for every student who's interested. And the numbers don't really work out unless we have, so I think our research opportunities at the first and second year level are great, but unless we have a lot more classes like Latanya's where there's a class where you're doing research on a scale of 8 to 12 people rather than just 1 or 2, how I've done it, then the numbers don't work out for every qualified student. So I think that it's an important strength of ours, but I do worry about giving the impression when they get here as first year students, hey, I'm ready for research, what can I do? That I can't provide that for everyone.
But I think it's also I've had students come in, well, how do I get into a research opportunity? And a lot of them just don't know. Because it's simple as find someone, a professor that's interesting, that's doing something interesting, and ask them. But they didn't, that didn't pop into their head. They're expecting some kind of formal application or who do I go and talk to? Is there a central office? And, as much as we try to just say, we're friendly, come talk to us one-on-one, I think some of the students and just from not understanding, or if there's cultural differences, not feeling comfortable going to a faculty saying, I want to work in your lab, give me, what do I do? So maybe giving them some kind of understanding of, how do you, there are tons of opportunities. There's research opportunities, there's internship opportunities, there's work study. How do you find these opportunities? What do you actually have to do? And it's simple. You go and ask the professor.
Yeah.
Or some professors will put out a call to their class saying, hey, I'm looking for a student. But the majority, it's a one-on-one conversation. And I don't think all the students know that that's how you have to go about it.
I think Oxford students though do. So when I taught at Emory College, if I had a third year student or third or fourth year student, if they came from Oxford, they were the students who were in my office talking to me.
Right.
But it might have been somebody who did their whole time at Emory College, they didn't develop that skill of actually similar to what Tasha was saying, like they actually went to Camille and talked to her. So they're sort of like, they're already sort of used to doing that.
But can I just add though, like I feel like what Melissa's saying is right, at least in my experience as like co-directing the Research Scholars Program, because students will always email me as the person and be like, how do I get into this program? And interestingly, I was going to add this because we have a page that's student directed for the program that's like information and tips on getting involved, and like it gives you sort of pointers of what to say to faculty and like what you strategically should be thinking about if you are trying to get somebody to consider you as a research scholar. So enroll in a class with them, do well in it, you know. So we have that, but it lives right now on the inside website. And I wonder if that information can be moved to the outside website, because right now there's like a paragraph on the outer facing website for research scholars. Because this is like a tangible opportunity that students want to know about, and getting information even before they get here about how to get involved with it, I think is good.
I think the other thing with our students, while they're all very intelligent and there's obviously a range in their ability, I find that a lot of them are surprised when what they're asked to do in class here is very different than what they were asked to do in class in high school. And everyone tells them in high school, college is going to be different, college is going to be harder, and they get here and they're like, your test was really hard because I had to like apply things, I didn't just like memorize. And so, I mean, that's obviously not, you know, in conversations at the beginning of the semester, I always start with that conversation of, you know, what you did in high school may not be what you can do while you're here. You may not have had to take a lot of notes or study a lot or do this or this or this. You can still be successful, but we have higher expectations and different kinds of expectations, right? This is not a place where you come and do rote memorization and you sit there with a Scantron test and it's just definitions, right? It's a different kind of thinking, and some students adapt to that more easily than others, and some are devastated when they get their first B that they've ever had in their life. And I think having them be aware of what it's like in a classroom, the kind of ways of learning that they're going to be asked to be involved with. Some of them know, some of them don't know.
Oxford, a great place to get a B.
And it's okay.
And it's okay.
This is why I'm not at market.
One thing I'd add is, you know, I think I've seen it on the website or elsewhere, there's the metaphor of at Oxford, in your first year, you can have a leading role. Or something like a theatrical metaphor is quite literal for me. Like I have 3 types of students. One type of student is spends 90% of the given classroom in absolute terror that I'm going to make them do something, and then for 10 minutes of the class they're absolutely brilliant. And then I have like super engaged students who live and breathe what we're doing, and they're basically working on an apprenticeship model with me and with Jesse, right, which is really rare. And then there's a vast middle category of like that Oxford of like a kind of elevated dilettante is really not a nice word, but it is kind of like a very highly engaged dilettantism where they're very passionate, but they don't want to do this for the rest, you know. And that vast middle, like they're more engaged, they do more stuff here than they can ever do at Emory. They just won't. As soon as they leave, I just know, I can see the future. You're going to go over there and this is it. This is your last moment to do anything. There's something really special about that, that you can have a variety of different interests. You can have a broad range of interests, and you're not doing all these different things in a superficial way. You're actually doing all these different things in quite a deep way.
Well, regarding you, many of you are advisors and you all teach students. Is there something that you think the students you're teaching have not grasped about Oxford, it's a surprise to them? Well, you've mentioned one, but of engagement, but do you think there's something about the academic program that they didn't get that they were supposed to, I don't know if I'm stating that well. In other words, this was in the past, we're not doing INQ as much, but I've had some people say, a lot of first year students don't know what I'm talking about when I say you need to take an INQ course, and they don't know what it is. And I know that the focus leader is not supposed to lead the witness, but that's just an example. And someone said to me, you need to make it more clear on the website what these courses are. So that's an example. Are there any basic concepts of an Oxford college education that you think they're not getting?
I feel like students are really savvy when they come in, or at least like the last few years, and they're like, I know I need to take this, and this. But the flip side of it is that they're like, I need to take flip. I mean, they're like literally checking the boxes. And so they're missing like the purpose, right, of why we're asking them to take INQ and writing and experiential learning and discovery seminar. And so they know that they have to do it, but they're grumpy about it sometimes.
So that's
And I
why
don't
we
think-
have them do the milestone project.
And I don't think they definitely know what they have to do here and how it's different than what may be available at Emory. Like, I had a student that is not doing very well in my class this semester and realized just this week that, oh, I can't take an INQ class at Emory over the summer to make up for this because they don't have INQ. So I don't, but I think some of these things that we offer specifically here, they don't necessarily know. It's not a whole Emory thing, that it is really something unique to Oxford. And I think with the Discovery Seminar being involved in the pilot, I got a lot of responses, and I think a lot of people did too, of this was too hard, too much reading, too this, too that for a Discovery Seminar. So I think there was a lot of misunderstanding of what a Discovery Seminar was. I don't think many of them realized that it was still a content-based class, that they expected it just to be a general freshman seminar, not really, that it's an easy A, you sit there, you kind of show up, and you don't have content connected to it. So I feel like with the Discovery Seminar, I think that needs to be very well explained and framed and grounded in this is still a content course. You are still getting a tag credit for it, like a science credit or a humanities or whatever credit. So there's still that content in there. And that was something they were surprised by.
I feel like in communicating with prospective students through the website, the Discovery Seminars are a great opportunity to show how our curriculum is distinctive. Because from my perspective, I haven't taught a Discovery Seminar, but I want to take everyone's Discovery Seminars because they all sound really cool. I realize my perspective is maybe a little bit different from a 17-year-old prospective students. But I think we can convey both like the excitement and interest of the Discovery Seminars, as well as the fact that they're like rigorous academic courses, and that Discovery Seminar doesn't mean, I'm not sure what people mean by for a Discovery Seminar, but it doesn't mean like we're just sitting around and like talking about whatever's on our minds or something.
And I think with just talking to my Discovery Seminar students, they struggled with topics because they found all these ones that sound really interested in the whole, and they wanted to take these ones, but they were really savvy, and they said, well, I know I want to be a science major, and I know that my advisor for the Discovery Seminar is my advisor for the rest of the time, so while I wanted to take this more than this one, I wanted this person to be my advisor because they were in my department or in the field that they wanted to pursue. And they're savvy, they know that, they're making those connections as opposed to just saying, oh, like, I feel like I was not that bright when I was a college student. I was like, oh, that just sounds like an interesting class. I'll take that one and deal with the advising thing later. And they are very on track. They have a plan. They want an advisor in their area, or at least in their division. And they're making those decisions, at least the Discovery Seminar, very focused on that component of it.
I think we have about maybe 5 or so minutes left, and this is.
How many people
Oh.
must leave at 1? And again, we won't keep you forever. So, okay, I just wonder how many, okay.
One concept that I really hope is a huge part of this redesign is the academic section. So I'm super excited to hear all of this feedback. And one of the things I know that we've met about before and that we've spent a lot of time trying to kind of think about this year is how to really brand the concept with the goal of, you know, kind of differentiating ourselves from Emory College, but then other people as well. And because I do think as we continue to move forward with the curriculum and the changes that there really is this kind of unique thing, but how to help 17 and 18-year-olds or prospective faculty digest that is a really hard concept. And so the Discover, Explore, Reflect, I think is really good. And I think it's great for a longer conversation, but I think it's a mouthful for that kind of first interaction or for that kind of spark to make you want to get to the Discover, you know, Explore, Reflect aspects of it. So, and I'm not going to tell you my opinion on these, but we've worked with the creative group to try to kind of come up with like some actual words to brand it, kind of like Agnes Scott Summit or something like that is kind of the concept. But here are a few, but what I'd really love to hear is if you guys have any ideas or other experiences that, you know, you might think would be good to look at in relation to this. So I'll just read a few of them and then get your opinion. AIM, the world is simultaneously conveys the idea of pointing towards a goal and achieving it through Oxford's curricular aims. Insight, defined as accurate and deep understanding. Insight is gained from discovery, exploration, reflection. These are much longer, I'm just reading a little bit. Rise, continuous process of improvement, so on and so forth. So those are just some concepts. So
it's AIM, Insight, and Rise.
Oh, I don't understand what is happening with these.
it would be,
Agnes Scott
Like a
can
brand.
tell prospective students, it's just a starting point. They'll say, when you come to Agnes Scott, you will be part of Summit. And then that's what they call
it's
it.
like the brand of their curriculum.
It's
if you
branding.
will.
It's very marketing.
But then when I hear that, I'm like, I don't even know what that means.
Right.
So is
Well-
Summit a particular program?
It is. It's the program of leadership that all Agnes Scott.
So are we talking about what our Discover, Explore, Reflect general education program, like a branding
Basically, it would
for
be
that?
one. This would be at
Yeah.
the point. It'd be one word.
It's basically the Oxford
And
experience.
then
But how to say it without saying
one word.
this.
Yeah, in other words, for
The
no,
Oxford experience.
we wouldn't jettison at all. We're not suggesting that we jettison, discover,
Mhm.
explore, reflect.
But is that what this word refers to?
But in other words, it's one word is easier than saying come to. Well, I mean, not easy. It's you're calling it you're naming a program.
I think one of the problems that we're having, it gets reflected, so in our faculty meetings, we don't even agree on what that experience is. So like, there was a whole thing with the experiential learning that like blew up. And so it's like, in terms of like marketing something, it seems like it makes it even harder if the people who are doing it don't agree on what the purpose or the like thing is. And so it's hard to even think of like, oh, how can I boil this down to one word when I don't agree with somebody else in how it's going. Like if we were clearer about it, that would.
Well, you guys agreed on discover, explore, reflect, right?
So
We
those
just kinda
words,
start there.
those are words, but yeah, but they like, when it's like, oh, this is the exploration, it was like a mess and barely even got past the thing. It was like one vote over passing, what was that for the,
Here, yeah,
Yeah.
close.
So does it, I mean, I guess like, is it supposed to be about like this specific curriculum right now? Or is it just supposed to be about like what Oxford is in relation to
It's about
Emory?
the
The
curriculum.
curriculum, about the academic program.
It's a starting point to say, we're just playing the idea of having a word that we can say, when you come to Oxford, you'll experience blank, one word. And that is a program that lets you discover, explore, reflect. And then in other words, it's like an inverted pyramid. We'll start down here with the one word and then we'll go up from there to explain what it is. It's just a hook. It's a hook word is the way
I mean, whenever I think the first word that comes to mind for me is not about like the particulars of this curriculum, it's like foundation or something. Because like when I think about the curriculum of Oxford, regardless of what particular curricular initiatives we're working on, it's like a foundation in the liberal arts for your Emory education. And so like that takes different forms, and like we have INQ and we have like this discovery seminar thing that we've now instituted and all of that. But like all of this is about providing a foundation in a liberal arts education.
Like base camp.
But it sounds to me like the marketing team likes the words that are action oriented.
I'll be honest, I didn't like any of I liked a lot of these words, but not as necessarily
The
what
thing
I think
about
it should be.
RISE,
Yeah.
it just sounds so deficit modeled, like
You were below and now it's time
like
to
a student
come on.
success, like
And
we're gonna
I
help
worry
you.
it taps into that old view that Oxford College students have to in some way rise up to become at the same level as Emory College students. And we that's not the case anymore. So rise has this, I think, connotation of, you're not there yet.
And there's always somebody below.
Yeah, good point.
And
Right,
like
like
Gary
in
Glass
relation.
was saying the other day, that question that students have about why am I still here, which just really like broke my heart. Why am I here? How did I get here? And why am I still here? Like I don't belong or I don't merit being here. So that kind of word. And insight, I don't know. It sort of goes with INQ, but aim again is that sort of language of like
you might make it, you might not.
you might
You
not.
have to be
I mean,
there.
I feel that way about it. I know Agnes Scott has been successful with Summit, and they also have they have a culture of, of women learners, and there's something about that, about overcoming certain gender barriers that I think maybe works for that institution. But for us, I just don't know if one word's going to get that other than, I mean, I really do like foundations for excellence or foundations for lifelong learning or,
Yeah, and those concepts, I mean, we can
I don't know.
build, upon them. I know it's difficult. Don't expect everybody to have this perfect thing or necessarily agree, but I mean, it's not like we have to meet in the middle. So,
But
so
also
we
back
can
to
have some knowledge.
Jack's point, I guess,
Thrive.
even though there's debate about like the details of all of this, I just don't see it as that explosive. I feel like people are still working through.
You were there, right?
Yeah, but we're still working out all the details of what counts and what doesn't.
I know, and
But
so
I feel like the pathway that there's
but there's like
agreement
12
about.
tags. Nobody knows what they are. It's like there's INQ, there's E, there's TPSL, there's this, there's that. To boil it all down into one thing. Well, it's a tag. I mean, it's a what it does is a tag, and so a course gets labeled that. One way to call something that labels it is a tag. Okay. And so to have all these things, I almost prefer that the vision of somebody coming in and saying, what is the thing? Because so far it's just been like, it feels like from an outsider's perspective, it would be good for somebody to come in and be like, let's boil this down because there's 100 things we can't have. In our division, we had a problem. Somebody wanted to have their course have 4 tags. And it's like, no, you can only have 2. Even like pedagogically, you shouldn't be doing 4 different kinds of courses. And so it's like, it feels just so much. And I can only imagine a student coming in and be like, I need a W, I need a da, 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 da. And it's like, So that's my reaction.
So you're saying you if we could come up with the right one, you would support using?
Yeah, I think that's needed. It's somebody to come in and be like, we've just gone in all these directions and it's just added and added and added and there has been no subtraction or no like conflation, and it's just been increasing the numbers of things rather than like saying it is totally true. What has been conflated?
Well, the INQ thing is different now, and like there's.
But it still
Taken
exists.
away
The E still exists.
Well, E now brings together all those
It's
things
an
you were saying
umbrella.
in the text. It's an umbrella for all those different pedagogies.
Are they still there though? Do we still submit an INQ application?
Yes.
Oh, so it is still there.
Yeah.
But now you
Okay.
submit one E, not all these different things.
I'm pretty sure you still submit an INQ.
E covering all of the things that count as E, not as IQ.
So my
It's
worry.
not adding more requirements to students though.
Which I think
I
is
didn't say
super
it
in
does.
depth
Oh, that's what I
for
understand.
like what we want them to understand at this level. I mean, I think just really a little bit more high level as far as like, this will be, I mean, the college website is still the #1 resource, even with everything out there that students are getting their information from. And so I think, just like you're saying, I was so confused, I couldn't understand. And clearly there's a lot of information out there, but they're not reading it, just like we're not. And so I think, again, going back to like, it's very hard to agree. And you guys are also amazing at all the things that you do. And all we want to do is tell your stories because of all the cool things you're doing. But it has to be like, it has to be easier and simpler and a little bit more, like a word or two, so we can, you know, engage them and then have them go on and look at, you know, all of the things that are going on here, because that's just unfortunately the way people digest information, kind of.
So my worry about having the word come from marketing is that we end up with these words that are disconnected from what our curriculum actually is. And so I feel like those are marketing words that like sound nice from one perspective or another, but don't tell you anything about our curriculum. And it seems like something like foundation that does tell you something about our curriculum. And I'm wondering if we could do something with inquiry, even though INQ is maybe like being superseded by other programs. I feel like it's still sort of, to me, the overarching essence of our curriculum. So I'm wondering if there's something we could do with the idea of inquiry for
That's
branding.
definitely the way Emory College is headed, and I think there is a conversation to be had on that side of they're moving in this sort of ways of knowing or ways of inquiry, and then these skill-based courses, which we have like writing and experiential learning and sort of experiences and skills. And so it's going to be confusing for those students too, you know, but they're not moving towards having the word. And so how do we balance out that? I don't know.
I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be just like this. I mean, we can, you know, move forward with more than one word. You know, we can move forward with the different concepts. I've just seen the most successful programs out there, you know, and I wish I knew a bunch more. I can't think of them right offhand, but there's these really kind of programs out there that people, you can say it and people know, you know, what school it is and that sort of thing. So I think I don't want to like put us in one, you know, down one path that, and of course, like wouldn't want the faculty to ever feel uncomfortable with what's been selected. I mean, that's why we're all here to like begin these conversations over the next year and kind of figure out, as this new section of the website is built, like everybody's proud of it. You want to send it to, you know, your colleagues or prospective students and say, this is the, you know, the exciting program and the Oxford experience or Oxford Foundations that we're really excited about doing here.
Do you see that happening at other peer institutions like the ones that we're now benchmarking ourselves against, like Davidson and McAllister and Carleton, and maybe Agnes Scott is in that group. I'm not sure if they're actually on that list, but did they have similar kind of?
I don't necessarily think that it's something our peers are doing. And it maybe it's just, you know, something that's really been on my mind, marketing Oxford for 14 years. I just, over the years, have kept thinking if we just had something to make us different and a way to articulate it. And so I really do think these changes, because ultimately that's that's the most important thing, is the academic experience. It's the most visited page, the academic section, the major pages. And so I just keep thinking that this is going to be something that maybe can move the needle on people really understanding like what we are here at Oxford and the concepts. So I don't know that I have real specific other peers that I've looked at per se, but just like you, I do know that this is kind of interest at a higher level, like the Engage Emory I get through this.
Emory Up or.
Yeah,
Engage
they're
for
all
impact.
kind of going on with these same.
Brace, brace.
Brace, yeah.
Similar concepts of like giving more of an identity to Emory in general, and
Yeah.
I would just love for Oxford to kind of have our own in that process.
Well, we're certainly, I mean, I'm throwing out those peer institutions, but we're not in the same position as the Davidson. I mean, we have to go after in a different way, and we're totally unique in higher education, so I can see that need. But it is the concern about a disconnect of, is this really gonna capture or not suggest remediation or something like that to our students?
I just get uncomfortable with words that seem overly marketed. And it seems inauthentic to me, and I'm not sure that is gonna play well with prospective students.
Yeah, I just had a conversation with a student recently that kind of alerted me to how they saw this as a place to be themselves in a way that the Atlanta campus was not offering up, so that they could kind of explore the things that they thought were unique about themselves had a home here, whereas on the Atlanta campus, they did not. So I feel similarly to Annette that the sort of the more trendiness of a term we try to advertise ourselves, the more off-putting that's going to be to sort of the uniqueness of some of the characters that get attracted.
I'm also wondering, not to court more controversy, like, is this something you would get approved by the faculty?
Yeah, I mean, again, this is just a focus group.
Yeah, no, I know. I mean,
Marching on and going out to change
Right.
the website today or anything.
You
I think
mean
it's just,
the word or the
Yes.
website, and that would be answered to yes to both. I mean, it would,
Okay.
we wouldn't just slap it on you.
Okay, good.
And maybe marketing people will listen to, like, you'll re-listen to our focus group talking to students, and maybe that will inspire people to be like, oh, we've been talking about blah, 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 blah. And then maybe people who are a little bit more removed can find terms or phrases that encapsulate sort of themes that you've noticed.
What about inspire? I just like listening to words that people say and picking out words that I
I just like
like.
have such a low tolerance for this. I don't know, like
Yeah, I agree.
Because I mean, like what you said, it feels like marketing to me.
Yeah.
It feels like somebody's trying to sell me something.
But we're also not the target audience.
But I don't know, I think Jessica's right though, like students aren't.
So that's, well, we can ask students.
Non-savvy, right?
I think students should really
and
be.
we're having
Yeah,
many
I'm sure
focus
that's-
groups,
Okay.
yeah, parents, students,
Yeah.
like lots and lots of people.
Like, we're sort of like narrow academics who are like, oh, this
And
is.
actually, if there's time, we're gonna have prospective students and parents, and we're gonna run that question by them, and it'll be interesting to see what they say.
So it's not clear to me to what extent this would be like a branding of like what the curriculum is actually called among people who are working here, or like something that exists mostly on the website. Like to what extent it's kind of owned by the faculty and students versus like, this is a word that's on the website, but once students are here, they're never like, hey, what about Oxford AIM or whatever?
I think that are we all to be determined, and not necessarily by me. I mean, clearly this is my concern because this is my job, and along with Kathy and all of the marketing things, which I actually love. And so, but if it's something that kind of people get behind, it creates momentum, you know, as things continue to get ironed out on the back end, I think it could be whatever we want it to be. I don't think there's any plan moving forward other than however we see best.
And I would say, I mean, this is more Office of Enrollment Services lane than mine, but if, you know, it's not 100% we're gonna choose a word. We're just, right? We're just trying, we're just exploring that. So, yeah, so you don't feel like we're gonna call it
And we're already
something violent.
doing this a lot on the, you know, I mean, if you look through our website, this is already happening. And you look through any of our publications, I mean, these are like really normal things that happen, is, you know, these types of descriptions and such, so.
Like, you probably didn't need a focus group for somebody to write Ready to Thrive. Like, you didn't need like OPC approval.
Oh, no.
No, I mean, I was asking
APC
this question because it was like, are we saying that this is what the curriculum is
Yeah,
called?
that's what, like a net.
And in which case, then it's sort of like,
Well, I think the Agnes Scott folks own Summit. I mean, I think the
Yeah.
faculty call it that. That's what I've heard and talked to Nitya about the process of getting to that. And that emerged as something organic for them, but yeah, maybe a similar process has to happen, but I don't know if we'll get that word.
Yeah, so I think the difficulty is that like marketing people are probably really good at brainstorming a list of words like this, whereas like in a room of faculty where we might be like, well, how can you distill down this to one word, or like this is stupid or whatever. But then my worry is like, how do you get from the marketing words to something that actually says something about what our curriculum is? It's a fun exercise.
I'm thoroughly enjoyed it.
Give us some alcohol at the faculty retreat and have us brainstorm words.
Yeah, I mean, and we've done all kinds of, and a lot of you have been part of them before, where you put the sticky notes up on the walls and pick pictures that, have like affect you or feel like represent Oxford. So, I mean, we've done, many of these over the years and have, yet to pick a word. So I'm not saying this is an easy thing, which again is why we want to spend this year really having, we're going to have a lot of focus groups, really do a lot of, peer assistance, all of those things. You guys are in fact our first focus group for the kickoff. So we, don't think it's an easy thing to do necessarily.
And there'll be other conversations with faculty and of course Ken's office and Molly about how the academic program is written up, but the words we use and how it's expressed and so forth. But this has been great feedback for us.
So if any words pop in, like at 2
Well,
o'clock in the morning when you're hanging out.
I was just going to say the way the curriculum was sort of designed with that framework of pathways and even the language of milestone is sort of like there's this journey motif or this progress being made towards reflection and then moving on to Emory. And so, but even pathways I think sounds like a rehab facility. So so I mean, you'd have to be careful about that. You know what I mean? I think it may. I think I know that somehow, but not the personal.
so I feel like, whatever, I don't know. I think that the reason that something like foundation makes sense to me is that like when we talk about the Oxford curriculum, we should never just be talking about the Oxford curriculum. We should be talking about this as part of the larger Emory education. And so for me, if you want a word, it's got to be a word that reflects that positioning.
Continuing. Yeah. Even like summit. So the way you describe summit is like, oh, so but no, a summit's like the end.
Yeah.
And then it's like,
that's been one
we're
of the
like the summit to
criticisms.
go on, and it's like that's not how summits work.
I've actually heard some people criticize their choice of that word for that reason. They said, well, then there's nowhere else.
done.
to go.
It's all downhill.
Is there what?
Your next stop.
In mountain climbing, 60% of deaths occur on the descent.
Really?
And this has literally gone
Is
down.
that on the website?
This conversation. We reached a summit earlier.
Well, thank you all
Really
so much.
appreciate all of your feedback
If you
and
have
information.
if you have something you want to show us that you don't like, and if you want to stay and explain to us about something that you encounter, that'd be helpful.
Is the inside website
That sounds like a
today?
rehab
I clicked on it once today and got an error.
Oh my gosh, I hope so.
It is back
It
up.
was a while
It is
ago.
back up.
Yeah.
It was at the start of this meeting.
Was right before I came here, because I was on Opus.
It's been quite